The check was already written when Marcus Thompson walked her off the lot. $47 million, enough to buy the entire dealership, fire every racist employee, and still have money left over for lunch. But when successful businesswoman Serena Washington walked into Thompson Luxury Motors that Tuesday morning, she wasn't planning to make the biggest purchase of her life. She just wanted to buy a car for her daughter's graduation. What she got instead was a lesson in racism that would cost Marcus Thompson everything he'd built over 20 years. Because some mistakes are so expensive, they change your life forever. And some customers have enough money to buy your entire world just to prove a. Serena Washington had learned to navigate the world with quiet confidence. As the founder and CEO of Washington Tech Industries, she'd built a fortune estimated at $2.3 billion, but she rarely flaunted her wealth. This Tuesday morning was no different. She wore simple jeans, a Georgetown University sweatshirt, and comfortable sneakers as she walked into Thompson Luxury Motors in downtown Atlanta. The dealership gleamed under the morning sun, its floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing rows of Mercedes, BMWs, and Porsches that cost more than most people's houses. But Serena wasn't intimidated by luxury. She'd earned every dollar through decades of innovation in artificial intelligence and cloud computing. Today's mission was personal. Find the perfect graduation gift for her daughter Maya, who was finishing her residency at Johns Hopkins. Marcus Thompson sat behind his polished desk in the center of the showroom, surveying his kingdom. At 48, he'd spent 2 decades building Thompson Luxury Motors into Atlanta's most exclusive dealership. His clientele included celebrities, athletes, and old-money families who appreciated his discerning approach to sales. Marcus prided himself on knowing his customers, on understanding who belonged in his showroom and who didn't. When he looked up and saw Serena browsing near a white Mercedes convertible, the exact model Maya had dreamed about since medical school, everything about his body language changed. His practiced smile faded, replaced by the kind of calculated assessment he reserved for people he deemed unworthy of his time. Serena ran her fingers along the convertible's pristine paint job, checking the interior, examining the features with the thoroughness of someone who knew quality. She'd driven luxury cars for years, but this purchase felt different, special. A celebration of Maya's achievement and a symbol of how far their family had come. "Excuse me," Marcus called out, his voice carrying across the showroom with unmistakable authority. "Can I help you with some?" Serena looked up with a warm smile. "Yes, I'm interested in this convertible. Could you tell me about the features and pricing?" Marcus approached slowly, his eyes taking in her casual clothes, her lack of designer accessories, her confident but unpretentious demeanor. Everything about his professional training told him this was a waste of time. This woman didn't look like his typical customer. She didn't carry herself with the entitled air of old money or the flashy displays of new wealth he was used to. "That's a very expensive vehicle," Marcus said, his tone polite but dismissive. "The base model starts at $89,000, and with the premium package we're looking at closer to $1 plus taxes, fees, extended warranties." "That's fine," Serena replied simply. "I'd like to take a test drive and discuss financing options." Marcus's eyebrows raised slightly. "Financing? Well, that's something we'd need to discuss extensively. Our approval process is quite rigorous. We typically require significant down payments, perfect credit scores, proof of income." "I understand," Serena said patiently. "What documentation would you need?" Marcus glanced around the showroom, noticing that his other salespeople were watching the interaction with interest. He'd built his reputation on maintaining a certain clientele, and he wasn't about to compromise that now. "Look, miss." He paused, waiting for her name. "Dr. Washington," Serena provided. "Dr. Washington," Marcus continued, his skepticism evident. "I appreciate your interest, but this particular vehicle requires a very specific type of buyer. Someone who can afford not just the purchase price, but the maintenance, insurance, the lifestyle that comes with driving a car like this." Serena felt a familiar tightness in her chest, the same feeling she'd experienced countless times throughout her career when people underestimated her because of her race or gender. But she kept her voice steady. I understand the responsibilities of luxury car ownership, Mr. Thompson. Marcus Thompson. I own this dealership. He said it with the pride of someone who believed ownership gave him the right to decide who deserved to shop there. Well, Mr. Thompson, I'm very serious about purchasing this vehicle. My daughter is graduating from medical school, and I want to surprise her with something special. Marcus's laugh was short and dismissive. Medical school is expensive. I'm sure you have enough financial obligations without taking on a luxury car payment you can't afford. The insult hung in the air between them, and Serena felt something shift inside her chest. Not anger, exactly, but a cold, calculating determination she'd developed over decades of building her business empire. Mr. Thompson, she said quietly, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I'm not looking for financing, I plan to pay cash. Marcus's expression grew more skeptical. Cash, ma'am? We're talking about over $100,000. That's not the kind of money people carry around. I'm aware of that, Serena replied. I was planning to wire transfer the funds or write a certified check. Right? Marcus said, his tone now openly condescending. And I suppose you just happen to have $100,000 sitting in your checking account. Serena pulled out her phone and opened her banking app, turning the screen toward Marcus. The number displayed made his eyes widen. 114,267 in her primary checking account. Just the petty cash she kept liquid for daily expense. Marcus stared at the screen, then looked back at Serena with confusion and growing suspicion. That has to be fake. There are apps that let you create fake bank statements. Serena's patience was wearing thin, but her voice remained controlled. Miss Thompson, would you like me to call my bank and have them verify the funds? Or perhaps you'd prefer to speak with my financial advisor at Goldman Sachs? Marcus took a step back, his confidence shaken but his prejudices intact. Look, I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but this isn't how business works. You can't just walk in here with some fancy phone app and expect me to believe you're some kind of millionaire. Actually, Serena said softly, it's Billionaire. The words seemed to echo in the suddenly quiet showroom. Other customers and salespeople had stopped their conversations to watch the exchange, sensing the tension building between the owner and the well-dressed black woman who was clearly not backing down. Marcus's face flushed red. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. You're clearly not a serious buyer, and you're disrupting my business. I'm disrupting your business? Serena repeated, her voice still calm but with an edge that made several people take notice. I walked in here to spend over $100,000, and you're telling me to leave because you don't believe I can afford it. That's exactly what I'm telling you, Marcus said, his voice rising. I've been in this business for 20 years, and I know my customers. You're not one of them. Serena nodded slowly, as if processing this information. Then she pulled out her phone again and made a call. Hello, David. It's Serena Washington. I need you to prepare an acquisition proposal. Yes, that's right. Thompson Luxury Motors in Atlanta. I want to buy the entire dealership today. Marcus's face went pale as he heard her words, but he still didn't fully comprehend what was happening. You can't buy a dealership because you're having a bad shopping experience. Serena ended her call and looked at Marcus with the kind of calm certainty that comes from having unlimited resources and zero tolerance for discrimination. Mr. Thompson, you just made the most expensive mistake of your life. In about 2 hours, my lawyers will present you with a purchase offer for this dealership. You're going to sell it to me, and then I'm going to fire you. Not because I'm vindictive, but because your prejudices just cost you everything you've worked for. The showroom had gone completely silent. Other customers and employees stood frozen, watching the most dramatic reversal of power they'd ever witnessed. Marcus's hands shook as he tried to process what was happening. You can't do that. This is my dealership. I built it from nothing, and I'm about to buy it with my nothing, Serena replied. Do you want to know the difference between us, Mr. Thompson? When I built my company from nothing, I never forgot where I came from. I never looked at someone and decided they didn't deserve respect because of how they looked or what they wore. She turned to address the other employees who had gathered to watch the confrontation. For anyone who's interested in keeping their job when I take over, Let this be a lesson. Treat every customer with dignity and respect. You never know who might be able to buy and sell your entire workplace before lunch. Marcus stumbled backward, his face ashen. This isn't possible. You can't just. Who are you? Serena smiled for the first time since entering the dealership. I'm Dr. Serena Washington, founder and CEO of Washington Tech Industries. We developed the AI systems that power about 60% of the world's cloud infrastructure. Maybe you've heard of us. Recognition dawned on Marcus's face. Washington Tech Industries was indeed one of the largest technology companies in the world, and Serena Washington was regularly featured on Forbes lists and business magazines. He just refused to sell a car to one of the richest women in America. Washington, he stammered. I didn't know. If you had just told me who you were. If I had told you who I was, you would have treated me with respect because of my money and status, Serena interrupted. But you should have treated me with respect because I'm a human being who walked into your store as a potential customer. That's the lesson you apparently never learned. Her phone buzzed with a text message. She glanced at it and smiled. That was my legal team. They've prepared an offer of $47 million for your dealership, building, and inventory. That's actually about $12 million more than it's worth. But I want to make sure there are no delays in the purchase process. Marcus felt his legs go. $47 million was more than twice what he'd ever dreamed his dealership was worth. But selling it meant losing everything he'd built, everything he'd worked for, everything that defined him. You're doing this because I wouldn't sell you a car? He asked weakly. I'm doing this because you revealed who you really are, Serena replied, and people like you don't deserve to own businesses that serve the public. Your prejudices just became everyone's problem, and now they're going to become your own. The other employees watched in stunned silence as their boss realized his career was over. One of the younger salespeople, a black man named Jerome who had worked at the dealership for 3 years, stepped forward hesitantly. Excuse me, Doc Washington, Jerome said, his voice respectful but nervous. I just wanted to say that not everyone here shares Mr. Thompson's perspective. Some of us believe in treating all customers with respect. Serena studied Jerome carefully. She'd noticed him earlier, had seen how he'd winced when Marcus began his discriminatory behavior. What's your name? Jerome Williams. Ma'am. I've been working here for 3 years, and I've always believed that good customer service means serving everyone equally. Serena nodded approvingly. Jerome, when I take over this dealership, would you be interested in a management position? I'll need someone who understands both sales and dignity to help me run this place properly. Jerome's eyes widened with disbelief and gratitude. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Marcus watched this exchange with growing horror, realizing that not only was he losing his business, but his employees were already moving on without him. Dr. Washington, Marcus pleaded, surely we can work something out. I made a mistake. I admit that. But this is my life's work. Isn't there some way? Serena looked at him with something that might have been pity. Mr. Thompson, you didn't make a mistake. You revealed your character. For 20 years, you've been making decisions about who deserves to shop in your store based on their appearance and your prejudices. How many other customers have you turned away? How many people have you humiliated because they didn't meet your arbitrary standards? Marcus couldn't answer because they both knew the truth. This wasn't an isolated incident. This was who he was. Serena's lawyers arrived within the hour, carrying documents that would transfer ownership of Thompson Luxury Motors to Washington Holdings, one of Serena's subsidiary companies. The purchase was structured as a cash deal with immediate closing, something that would have been impossible for most buyers, but was routine for someone with Serena's resources. As Marcus signed the papers that ended his career, Serena made her first executive decision as the new owner. Jerome, she called out, please show me that white Mercedes convertible again. I'd like to complete my original purchase. Jerome smiled broadly and led her to the car that had started this entire confrontation. Dr. Washington, this is our premium model with all available options. It's truly a beautiful vehicle. It's perfect, Serena said, running her hand along the hood. My daughter is going to love it. Now, what was that about a test drive? As they prepared the car for her test drive, Serena noticed that word of the purchase had spread throughout the automotive district. Other dealership owners and employees were stopping by to witness the aftermath of Marcus Thompson's spectacular downfall. But Serena wasn't interested in gloating. She was interested in setting a new standard. "Jerome," she said as they returned from the test drive, "I want you to gather all the employees. I have some things to say about how this dealership is going to operate going forward." The staff assembled in the showroom, a mix of salespeople, mechanics, and administrative workers, who weren't sure if they still had jobs. Serena stood before them with the quiet authority of someone accustomed to leading large organizations. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, "as of today, this dealership operates under new management and new principles. We will treat every customer who walks through that door with dignity and respect, regardless of their appearance, their race, their gender, or their perceived ability to make a purchase. We will judge people by their character and their needs, not by our prejudices and assumptions." She paused, letting her words sink in. "I'm not interested in running an exclusive dealership that only serves people who look a certain way or come from certain backgrounds. I'm interested in running an excellent dealership that serves everyone excellent. If you can embrace that philosophy, you have a future here. If you can't, you're free to find employment elsewhere." One of the older salesmen raised his hand. "Dr. Washington, what about Mr. Thompson? Is he really fired?" Serena's expression was firm but not unkind. "Miss Thompson's employment was terminated the moment he decided that the color of my skin disqualified me from shopping here. That's not the kind of leadership this dealership needs or deserves." Over the next few weeks, Serena implemented sweeping changes at what was now called Washington Luxury Motors. She invested in additional training for all employees, focusing on customer service, cultural sensitivity, and the kind of inclusive business practices that had made her own company successful. But the most important change was culture. Under Marcus Thompson's leadership, the dealership had catered to prejudice and exclusivity. Under Serena's ownership, it became a place where excellence in service was the only standard that mattered. The story of Marcus Thompson's downfall became legendary in Atlanta's business community. It was cited in diversity training seminars, discussed in business schools, and shared as a cautionary tale about the costs of discrimination. But for Serena, the real victory wasn't in destroying Marcus's career. It was in creating something better from the ashes of his prejudice. 3 months after the purchase, Serena stood in the showroom watching Jerome help a young black couple select their first luxury vehicle. The man was a recent medical school graduate, and his wife was a teacher. Under Marcus's leadership, they might have been ignored or dismissed. Under Serena's ownership, they were receiving the same careful attention given to every customer. Her daughter Maya had indeed loved the white Mercedes convertible, but she'd been even more impressed by the story of how her mother had acquired it. "Mom," Maya had said, "you didn't just buy a car, you bought justice." And in many ways, that was exactly what Serena had done. She'd taken a moment of discrimination and transformed it into an opportunity for positive change. She'd shown that sometimes the most powerful response to prejudice isn't anger or revenge, but the quiet demonstration of what true success and character look like. Marcus Thompson, meanwhile, struggled to find new employment in the automotive industry. Word of his discriminatory behavior had spread throughout the business community, and few companies were willing to risk the liability of hiring someone with his track record. He eventually found work as a sales associate at a small used car lot on the outskirts of town, a humbling fall from his former position as owner of Atlanta's most prestigious dealership. But Serena rarely thought about Marcus anymore. She was too busy focused on the future, both for her new dealership and for the broader message it represented. In a world where prejudice still existed, where people were still judged by their appearance rather than their character, Washington Luxury Motors stood as proof that success could be achieved without sacrificing principle. The white Mercedes convertible that had started it all remained on display in the showroom, polished to perfection. But now it carried a small plaque that read, "Excellence has no color. Service has no prejudice. Success has no limit." And every customer who walked through the doors of Washington Luxury Motors, regardless of their background or appearance, was treated with the dignity and respect that every human being deserved, because that's what real success looked like. Not the exclusion of others, but the elevation of everyone. If you believe that respect shouldn't depend on the size of your bank account, that dignity isn't determined by the color of your skin, and that true success means lifting others up rather than putting them down, then this story matters, because in the end, we all have the power to choose whether we're building bridges or walls, whether we're creating opportunities or destroying them, and whether we're judging people by their character or by our prejudices. The choice, as Marcus Thompson learned too late, can cost everything, but as Serena Washington proved, it can also create something beautiful, something lasting, and something that makes the world a little bit better for everyone.